I want to talk about Prairie because I know that some people have not started it yet because they were waiting for the new year. And I know some people have finished all 12 of the applique blocks and are sitting there going, now what? And Becky literally has not gotten into her craft room for I don't know how many weeks now. So I'm here to answer the now what.
How many blocks have you done?
I have done 12. I've got the 12 done, but they're not all together, which is the next step. But I'm here to let you know that just because I did it this way doesn't mean you need it. You need to do it this way. I used my little luminaire and did
There's nothing little about the luminaire.
There's not.
No.
She's pretty.
She's gorgeous. And I appliqued by machine, and if you purchase a kit from us, you are eligible to get on the Facebook page where you can download the digital files. So on that Facebook page, if you bought a kit from us, all 12 of the applique blocks have been released. And there are several people who have gotten through all of the 12, which is nice. And now they're like, now I don't know what I'm supposed to do next. Okay, well, what you can do is go back to Lori Holt's blog and follow her put together instructions. You can. You have now completed all of her 12 weeks of applique, and if you go back to her blog, she talks you through making the rest of the sashing. Actually, can I show the piece quilt? I want to show this to get everybody an idea of what I'm talking about. This is Lori Holt's quilt diagram, and you'll notice that in the middle are the 12 applique blocks I was just talking about. These are the ones that, well, okay, Becky, sit still. Okay, these are the ones that some people have finished completely and are ready for the next step. And I'm telling you, the next step can be as easy as trimming them down per Lori's instructions to 16.5 inches, piecing them together, using her sashing, using her border, sticking it together, bringing it into Brent, and getting it quilted up. That's all on Lori Holt's blog. So if that's the direction you want to take, you don't need me for nothing. And then on the
buffering, so I had to check their technical specs to make sure we were doing
and
all
on
right.
the back, I used fat quarters of various fabrics. I'm trying to use different fabrics, thank you, Lynn, on all of them. And I also use sashing on the back. So a lot of people you'll see use the sashing on the back or the front, like Pat and Pool, and they call that the cover strip method. I'm calling this the cover strip method. There's no reason you have to do it my way. There's 10 zillion ways to put this together. What I'm only going to demonstrate on this quilt is the way I've done it thus far. And why I chose to do it the way I did it, in hopes that it will help you stretch your brain a little bit, so that as you look at quilts coming down the pike, there are so many ways to approach this type of quilting. So, what's the matter, Lynn?
Nothing.
You're trying to figure
I
it
was
out.
trying to figure it out.
Yeah. It's not hard to figure out.
I know, but
Actually,
I'm looking
it's
at
very
it like,
easy.
how do you do that? Okay.
Yeah, but what I wanted to cover today, so that you guys could get busy on because you got to get your blocks quilted if you want to do the quilt as you go, and you don't have to do it digitized. You can. I just digitized echo quilting. Okay, you can get your old sewing machine out and just do this by hand if you want. What I want to cover is the batting, how I determine the batting and the backing, so that you guys can get busy on doing these. Because you have to have at least 3 done before you can put them together. Cool. That's really cool. Well, I did mine in a hoop. So I'm going to explain to you how to do yours in the hoop. Okay, Lynn?
I'm ready.
All right. So I don't want to use extra stabilizer because that's me. Like, why bother using stabilizer if you don't have to? So this is batting that is not just any batting. I'm going to tell you. You need batting that isn't going to stretch. It's got to have some good stability to it. The shop is carrying a 70-30 Dream
Cream blend.
blend. That's what this is, that I highly recommend. I've had great luck with it. You do not require any additional stabilizer.
100%.
Okay, the scrim layer is helping hold all this together. And do you know what the scrim layer is?
I do not.
Typically you can feel it actually. One side will feel a little rougher than the other, like feel this side is smoother.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So when you make your quilt sandwich on these, you kind of want to think about it was, what do I want towards my face when I'm snuggling? I want the smooth side towards my face when I'm snuggling. So the first thing I do is I determine which is the smoother side. Now some people never even realize there were two sides to the batting, and all these years they haven't cared, so maybe you don't need to care. But I don't know, that's me. This is the smooth side, so smooth side up. But I want to point out how big I cut this. Because if you're not using an embroidery machine, you are not going to have to oversize it like this. Okay? The reason I do is so I am able to hoop this.
Your nails look great on there.
Oh, God. They're awful. I need to hoop this. So that's why I have the extra batting. This is not trimmed down to the finished size that Lori gives us yet. This is probably 18 inches by 18 inches at this point, because it's oversized to begin with. I should have measured it to tell you, but I'm thinking it's 18 by 18. It is. I'm looking at this. It's 18 by 18. She has you trim it down to 16 and a half. I warned you, if you want to do this method, don't trim it down yet, because you're not going to trim it down to 16 and a half. So I kind of just find the center. You don't have to be a rocket science about this part, because it's oversized. And when you're done, by the way, and you do trim this off, don't throw it away, because you can reuse it. Yeah, it's not wasted. You can butt this batting up to one another and use it in your borders. Just saying. So it doesn't have to go to waste. And then on the back, I found back quarters were plenty big enough. I didn't want to get exact. I came in and I said, give me a bunch of fat quarters. And I take on the back, this is obviously going to go to the back, but again, all I'm going to do is kind of center this, find the center of this, and when I'm done, I'm just going to put all three of these together, and I'll use a little spray. I'm going to put all three of these together like this, so it's centered. Spray them up with some 505 or whatever you got, any adhesive. It doesn't have to be like super tight, because you're going to put it in the frame and you're going to start embroidering it. That's how I'm preparing my blocks to quilt them.
That's it.
That's it. And then to quilt them. So that's the first step. You got to get them quilted, people. And then you can quilt them either by putting them in the hoop and doing the digitizing. And I'll tell you on every file, it's really easy. We use the same crosshair technology we did for the blanket stitching with the applique. You're going to line up A with the crosshairs, not stitch out the crosshairs, go around. B, same thing, C, same thing. So if you've already appliqued your blocks using our files, the quilting works in the exact same way. And the reason it's not all in one, people, is because you can put them together if you want. That's up to you. But I like the fidgety part of, because when you quilt, it changes. So I like to be able to fidget the next one and then the next one, and I just go around like this. And then middle's last. But if you have a 9x14 hoop and you want to do these three together, go for it. I don't get the results I like that way. I want to fidget with it. So that's how you're going to quilt them. Easy, right?
Sounds it.
It is easy. Maybe next time you can actually quilt one up. So we have files. We have files 1 through 6 ready to go, I think.
Yes.
Not posted yet.
No.
Okay. And I was working on 7 through 12. And my goal is to get those out before the end of the weekend. 7 is the one that I have a hiccup on. What?
I'm holding my breath.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So that's what Quilt As You Go. You'll see all different methods. But the first one we're going to do is and I'm going to oversize this batting. When I cut it down, I'll just show you one cut down. here's one, this was block 5, that has been quilted, right? When I first cut it down to stick it, in my pile of done ones, you'll notice I'm just squaring it up. I'm just squaring it up to the 18-inch block at this point. I'm not getting any fancier than that. I'm not going, oh, what size do I need it to absolutely be yet? I'm
Question
leaving
for you.
it at 18 inches
So
for now.
Those are 18 inches untrimmed.
Mm-hmm.
How, because a fat quarter is 18 by 22.
Right.
So, how's that working out? Are you lining that back up really nicely?
I center.
you're
What
just-
I
you're
do
just
is I
centering it,
find
okay.
the center of my batting,
Yep.
and then I take the center of my front block and I put it on the center of my batting. Then I turn it over, and again, I know where the center of my batting is. So I find the center of my block. Literally, this is what I
Yep.
do. And then I go, plus you can see,
Yep.
actually, if you look, you can see where your block
Well, I
is.
just was wondering.
And I just push that down. Now, this is still oversized at 18 inches.
Well, that's
It
what I
is
was gonna say.
still oversized.
You've got enough on there that that you'll have plenty to trim out. Because
Yep.
I would be worried that the 18-inch back is the same size as the top, so you're going to lose a little bit, but it's all going to trim down just fine. Okay.
Yeah, it's already, seriously, it's oversized by 1 inch at this point.
Okay.
I wasn't going to get into those technicalities yet.
Yeah, no, I was just.
I like
curious, I was
people to get a couple done so I can then show putting them together. I leave it at 18 at this point, and I stack them up until I have 3 done, and then I put those 3 together. And now I will be putting the rows together. And I'm going to show you one other thing. Lori tells you to trim it 16 and a half. Well, that's okay, Brent. Oh, no,
There
you
go,
got
right
it.
there.
She
See?
tells us to trim it 16 and a half. She lets us know that we're going to cut our sashing at 1.5 inches. Well, if I'm cutting my sashing at 1.5 inches, then I know that my sashing is going to finish at 1 inch. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
Right?
Say yes, Brent.
Yes.
So I'm not going to cut my sashing at 1.5 inches because I like to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance when I do Quilt As You Go.
Oh.
So I'm going to cut my sashing at 2 inches for my front and my back. That leaves me a 1/2 inch seam allowance on each side instead of a 1/4 inch seam allowance on each side. The reason I do that, well, now you're going to get me technical, but you started looking. How did you do
I
that?
can't help it.
I
I'm
know.
curious.
Now,
I'm
I know.
curious.
I'm going
Jean
to show
was-
you how easy it is.
Jean was wondering if we'll be putting them together on next week's show.
Yes.
Okay.
Right,
So we'll
Lynn?
be showing.
I thought we were doing a separate video for that.
We are, but I'm going to
Working.
show them.
Okay.
Okay, Brett,
gonna
I
be
don't know if you can
working.
get a
Yeah.
shot of what's going on in there. This
Yeah.
is how easy it is. My sashing is finishing at 1 inch, okay? But I want a 1/2 inch seam allowance. My batting butts up in the middle of that sashing. So for that to happen, to have a 1/2 inch on each side, I've got to increase the width of my 1 inch sashing to 2 inches because I'm going to make a 1/2 inch seam allowance on either side.
Okay.
And that seam allowance, when I do it with my block in there, it already includes my batting. So I'm not adding any more batting in these sashing strips. It's already there.
Okay.
So instead of trimming my blocks to 16 and,
Half.
is that what she tells me? Yeah, 16 and a half. Guess what I'm doing? Because that's a 1/4 inch. And I want a 1/2 inch.
Click
So
over.
I'm going to trim it to
17?
17 by 17.
Hmm.
That's
17, for those that speak Spanish.
that. By trimming this, and we'll actually put one together next week, but by trimming this to 17, and you don't have to trim it before, just get them quilted. By trimming this to 17 instead of 16 and a half, and I already have the batting and everything in there, I've got the correct size to slap my sashings on, and I'm done. I'm done. And then I did.
Starting-
That was easy.
This is gonna be-
Then I just did some fancy top stitching because I thought it was pretty. This is just extra fancy top
It's
stitching.
pretty.
It's very pretty. And that's it. Front and back is done. And I'm on to connecting a row. And guess what? I'm going to do the rows the exact same way. She's got sashing with little cornerstones. I'm going to make the sashing with the little cornerstones 2 inches wide. And I'm going to sew them on here. Then, just to give you a sneak peek of how I would do the borders, I think this is made up as I go.
Are those piece borders on that?
They are.
Ooh.
No. This is a piece of cake.
I'm just thinking of making them. I mean, look at all those little borders.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of chain piecing in this one, a lot. But it's just cutting squares and sewing them together, and they're all like here, there, and everywhere. But if you look, those borders are put on with sashings. So I will make the piece boarding. I will make the cream, attach it to the cream color. I will leave out the sashing that puts these borders onto my center block. I will quilt all of those borders and then attach them with sashing the same exact way I'm attaching these.
Oh, okay.
And use one of my
Sounds
fancy frames to get through that quilting.
That Brent's gonna order for us.
And it will be
Yes.
custom because my borders will be different than my center.
Yeah,
Custom.
I like it.
And then Lynn will bind it for me.
Not on your life.